So something I really love about fighting games is how every fighting game has some relevance at tournaments or events. Combo Breaker 2022 was last month, and you can see everything from Guilty Gear Strive back to even Third Strike. Even at Combo Breaker, I commentated Bloody Roar Extreme for the first time, and it was a blast. I think the beauty of fighting games is how the community celebrates the genre. Fighting games are a niche, sometimes really small, but the community will breathe even more life into games back from the 90s like they just released yesterday. I think that's so dope. That's so raw to me. And I strongly believe fighting games never really die unless the player base for it does. However, the preservation of video games is also very important to me. Knowing the history of how you started, or is to help prevent from making the same mistakes in the future with newer installments. Listen, understanding where you came from can help you grow from there in life as well, right? So this is why collections of old video games media is very important to me in the grand scheme of things. As many earlier games deteriorate, it becomes more difficult each year to guarantee playability, and it becomes even easier or harder to play old games depending on if you have a PC or not, or if you are into emulation. There are games that still don't work even through emulation, even expensive as hell to buy on your own. I think Capcom also realizes that preservation of their golden age of gaming is very important for the future. Which, by the way, this is like the 29th Capcom collection they have ever done. Today, I'm here to tell you why this collection might be the best, and I will be reviewing the Capcom Fighting Collection. The review code was provided by Capcom themselves, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to do so. But right now, strap in, hit the sub button, and let's get right into it. So first things first, Capcom Fighting Collection is going for $40. And it goes with 10 games from the past. This is also really dope because a lot of these games I've never played, so I'll describe my first experiences with you on some of these as well. The games I played before are Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Hyper Street Fighter 2, and Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix. They all run solid and smooth, so no complaints there. Just remember how I loved them growing up. Now honestly, this should have been called a Capcom Darkstalkers HD Collection, because this takes up half the games in the library. All of Darkstalkers Vampire Savior Capcom games included are Darkstalkers The Night Warriors, Darkstalkers Revenge, Vampire Savior, Vampire Hunter 2, and Vampire Savior 2, which was previously both unavailable outside of Japan. I played all of these for an hour because I don't think I've ever played them for more than maybe 10 minutes of my life, or just don't remember at all. But I do remember watching a lot of retro tournaments about these games. Out of all the games in the collection, I'm so happy to say that Vampire Savior feels so good. This game has the perfect speed. I love the normal, the turbo mode, loving the pace of the gameplay. It is so good. I'm so sad that I missed out on this growing up because I just did not get the chance to play this game, I believe. It feels unique compared to many other Capcom fighting games today as well. Like, this game is actually pretty dope. I know I'm just like going off about it, but I think it's pretty fire. I'm just so upset I didn't get to play this when it came out. And what's crazy is I already knew about Morgan because of various other games like Marvel vs. Capcom, outfits in Street Fighter V, and Project Cross Zone. There's also this cool game called Cyberbots Full Metal Madness, which you fight in mechs. It's like 2D Gundam, but the story mode actually had me interested in the game 100%. I'm not a big fan of mechs though, but this game was pretty fun. This was like Metabox X Gundam Versus if it was a 2D fighting game. But the most dope game in this collection, and it surprised me that this has not been done again with fighting games, but then I thought about it, I understand why it hasn't been done with fighting games again, was Red Earth, or Warzard, as it is called in Japan. So imagine if an entire JRPG gameplay was a fighting game. Yes, you heard that right. So imagine like Boss Rush, but with your health bar carrying via rounds and next levels. You pick from 4 dope characters that are all super fun to play, then you go to this deep story quest. If I'm being honest, it's like what fighting games need to go back with instead of just doing arcade mode, because simply for a game back in the 90s, this was way more ambitious than many fighting game story modes alone in 2022. From my knowledge, no character experiences similar dialogue or anything of that nature, so I believe all 4 characters have a very unique playthrough going through this. And what's really dope about the game is as you play and you beat the bosses or enemies, you do get level ups, and when you level up, you unlock new moves. And it's cool because it's like, alright, you unlocked a new move, now you can use it in the gameplay. It's kind of like leveling up in a JRPG, something like Tales of, or even action games, or things like Kingdom Hearts. There's so many different games I can compare it to. It's pretty dope to see a game play like a fighting game that have a robust JRPG like RPG system in it. Now let's talk about the most important thing, the netcode. The netcode is probably some of the best I've experienced in a Capcom video game, being in a huge redemption for Rollback. This is probably one of the best netcodes I've experienced in years from Capcom, to be honest with you. If this is the rollback that we might be getting for Street Fighter 6, but way more improved, Jesus Christ, it's about to be heaven on here, bro. I played with another reviewer for about an hour of playtime, and legit, it was pretty flawless. I don't know where he was located or anything of that nature. I had a few hiccups. When I played on Wi-Fi first time, I used the Wi-Fi test, and after 10 minutes of matches, it was pretty good. And then it got a little hiccups, but it could have been me because I played matches at 2 a.m., which for some reason, sometimes, the worst for me, I don't know. It just, Xfinity be on bullcrap with me. When I was playing on wired after I switched after we did a couple sets, it was pretty flawless, pretty clean all the way through. It is not the perfect netcode, but I'll be honest with you, it is up there. It's like right up there behind like Guilty Gear in some aspects, and in between King of Fighters with its rollback. I think it may be even better, but I never felt like I couldn't do anything in the gameplay. And that's what is most important to me. That was solid in that regard. The last dope thing about the network settings in the game is that you can set your input delay across the board for every game however you want it to be. I have mine on firm frame delay. Usually I'm used to anime games, so 3 to 4 frames is, where I draw the line, Also, you're probably watching a lot of my gameplay and seeing the borders and things of that nature shift. You can make the game however you want to play the game. You can be nostalgic old head and put borders up. You could just have it in classic 4x9 like in the 90s and early days, or you can stretch it and have it by 16:9. You also can put on scan lines like old CRTVs. I love this feature. This is something that I know other collections have this, but this is my first time actually experiencing it myself in a long time, since maybe Mega Man. I never got to talk about it at that time. But I think this is dope. It's like customization for how you want to play these retro classic games. Now, the only negative I will say about this collection, and I wish they would have put this on here, I'll be honest, I think most of the fighting collections, or the ones with the fighting games in it, most of Capcom's collections have Street Fighter 2 in there. I think what would have been dope is if they would have gave us Third Strike, knowing that Street Fighter 6 is coming out next year. Give us Third Strike in this collection, because it already has, like, I think the 360 version has good netcode in it. Other than that, I think if it didn't have Alpha or anything of those natures, I think Capcom might be saving that for like a 40th anniversary. Just putting all the Street Fighter games in just one collection. Hopefully they'll do that one day. Well, who knows? That sounds a little too ambitious. Or maybe not. Games are 100 gigabytes, just let it rock there. I think there's also another complaint that I've seen from people on Twitter and social media, that this doesn't have Darkstalkers 3. I can't attest to that because they just gave me a group of games that I've always wanted to play for the first time, and I think that's cool. I think this overall collection, that's my only little gripe about this Capcom fighting collection, to be honest with you. And the last thing I will say, should you buy the Capcom fighting collection? 100%. If you've never played Darkstalkers before, I think it's 100% worth it. And even if you just buying it for the Darkstalkers games, you get 5 out of 10 of the games, which are Darkstalkers or Vampire Savior like games. I honestly think this might be a test again. Capcom probably may have done it in the past, but this might be another test and intrigue what we could do with Darkstalkers within Capcom. Capcom got their focuses right now, but let's say in the future, like deep future, they might want advertisements for like Morrigan or bringing characters and stuff like that into other games, piquing the interest, getting more love of that put into other franchises as well. That's very important. I think all these games on here are pretty solid. I definitely think everybody should try out Red Earth. I think that's pretty dope. If you don't like fighting games, Red Earth might be the way for you to try out a fighting game with some JRPG like systems and functions. I think for the $40 that this is a pretty good buy. Just saying, Capcom, can you please give us a Mega Man Battle Network collection? Come on, it's about time now, right? That being said, this is my Capcom Fighting Collection review. Tell me how you guys feel. If you got any more questions, comment down below. I'll talk to you guys about it and reply. If you guys enjoyed the video, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell to get notifications when I upload. On this channel, I upload everything RPG, such as Square Enix and fighting games. And that being said, follow me on Twitter at avataryayaTV_. But also remember, you guys are golden and that is raw. Squalla, peace, and I'm out.
I've been the devil, I need me a hawk in the heart. Am I breathing? I feel like time's right. Walking this bitch with a zombie, I want to see rocket.